welcome to this new video for my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Carolina and today I'm going to be talking about a story called The Count of Monte Cristo. The book was written by Alexandre Dumas Père and published in 1844. And since this is a very famous classic, there have been several adaptations of it made throughout the years. I've only really completely seen one of them though, the movie that came out in 2002 starring Jim Caviezel, Richard Harris and Guy Pearce. I have seen bits from the ones from 1975 and from 1998. The former because it stars Richard Chamberlain, whom I completely fell for in The Thornbirds, and the latter because Gerard Depardieu is an amazing actor and I want to see his portrayal of the famous protagonist of this story. Anyways, this will be a video with spoilers, so beware. This is the story of Edmond Dantes, and we follow him from the time he is a naive, poor, good, honest, young sailor of 19 to his early 40s where he has assumed the identity of the mysterious Count of Monte Cristo, an enormously wealthy man. When we first met Edmond, he appears to have it all. A beloved father, a beautiful girlfriend, and the promise of becoming the captain of his own ship. But because other men are jealous of him, Edmond is robbed of all of these blessings and ends up being imprisoned without a trial as a traitor and sent to the famous and real Chateau d'If. There, Edmond will spend more than a decade, but it is within those walls that his life will change forever. Because rather than becoming mad with grief because of the injustice he has suffered, fate or providence delivers him several blessings. He befriends a fellow prisoner, the Abbé Faria, this old priest who teaches him history, languages, science and more, and who tells him of a grand treasure hidden on the island of Monte Cristo. When Edmond manages to escape prison, he finds this treasure and assumes the identity of the Count of Monte Cristo. He spends years traveling the world, transforming into this highly intelligent, dignified nobleman, but during this period he has also been planning the best way to revenge himself upon the man who stole his youth and the life he ought to have had. And thus the book follows the way he collects his debts from his enemies. I thoroughly enjoyed reading The Count of Monte Cristo. I give it a 5 out of 5 stars review and I highly recommend them to anyone. Dumas' writing style is really easy to understand, and despite the fact that the plot is very detailed, several characters coming in and going all over all of the time, and half a dozen plots to remember, it never confused me. The characters were so vividly portrayed during their introductions that I had no trouble recalling them even though they hadn't made an appearance for hundreds of pages. And I've always been fascinated with this story, but what appealed to me the most was Edmond Dantes, his quest for revenge, his character development, and his love story. But now that I've read the book, I was pleasantly surprised to find myself quite as invested in the fate of many of its other characters. I cried more than once before I finished it, and all in all, it's a beautiful story, full of messages that strive to impress upon the reader the importance of being just, patient, and never losing hope. It's a book with everything you could ask for. Romance, drama, revenge, history, crime, irony, fighting, comedy, mystery, intrigue, faith. And since it's also considered an adventure story, it can be read by younger audiences, in their early teens maybe. And I really love the way I'm pretty confident that even though I'm in my 60s, I'm still going to enjoy it as much as a young kid would. As to the 2002 movie, I'm gonna tell you more about it later on, but I give it a 3.7 out of 5 stars review, despite the fact that it meant a lot to me while I was growing up. Because now that I've read the book, it's not really that faithful of an adaptation. And thus the manner in which it seeks to simplify a grand, vast story fails to make it a really, really great adaptation. I used to like the fact that in this movie, Edmond and Fernand grew up together and were best friends. But now this just seems too much of a cliche since that doesn't happen in the book. I also don't like the way the film makes the character of Villefort plan his father's murder, made a bad husband of Fernand. Sure, I get that the movie needs to have these very clear stereotype villains which the audience can clearly hate, but the characters in the book are just such complex human beings. I'm now glad that I also have the book to enjoy rather than just the movie. And also, in the film they only concentrate on Edmond's lust for revenge once he's become the Count. But yet, in the book he does so much more with his money. During the 10 years since he acquires his wealth to the time when he starts really putting into motion his plans for revenge, he travels, he learns tremendous amounts of information, he saves people's lives, and so on. So it was nice to see that there was way more to this character than the one I knew from the movie. And while I was growing up, what I really enjoyed about that film were particularly the appearance of Richard Harris, because he's one of my favorite actors ever, and also the love between Edmond and Mercedes. And while I still really like the way they made Albert, Edmond's son, here, and had the all-star-crossed lovers end up together, In the end, I am glad that the novel is different. Sure, what works for the book and what works for the movie are different things. Seeing as that changes between them make many of the characters completely different from their original inspirations. But I'm really glad that Monte Cristo ended up finding love with another woman. I mean, actually, when I was growing up, I think that one of the reasons why it took me so long to read the book was because I knew that in the end, Mercedes and Edmond didn't end up together. But now that with the clarity that being older bestows upon me, now that I've actually read the story, it makes more sense that Mercedes and Edmond from the book wouldn't have been happy together. There was just too much luggage and many things standing between them for them to ever be happy again if they were to end up together. And overall, I think that what I'm trying to say is that I really enjoy the way Edmond's love story concludes both in the book and in the movie. The one from the film is more of a cliche and more romantic, and the one from the novel is more realistic. But still, I do think it's quite interesting how the movie shows the dynamic of Edmond and Albert, given the fact that Edmond is his father rather than just the son of his rival and the woman he loved. But I really like how in the book Albert isn't his son, because it's really sweet the way with time and despite the Count's best efforts, Albert starts to win him over. And in the end, it's beautiful when Edmond realizes that Albert is more Mercedes' son than Fernand's, his enemy. And thus he ends up respecting him and liking him. My introduction to the Count of Monte Cristo was with that 2002 movie. I saw it when I was a child and I remember that I really loved it for several reasons. It made an impression on me. It was a romantic period drama. It had handsome actors. It starred one of my favorite actors ever. When I was in my early teens, I showed it to my best friend from childhood one afternoon, and I still remember that day for two reasons. First, because we saw it as we took care of my pet hamsters, but also because there's this character there in the film called Jacopo, and my friend found him amusing. So to this day, I always tease her calling her Mrs. Jacopo, even though she's a married lady. But yeah, moving on, when I was in my teens, around 14 or 15, I already love reading classics, and so I found in my school's library a copy of the Count of Monte Cristo and I read it, but I think it might have been an abridged version. Ugh, I'm talking about abridged versions. Throughout the years, I ended up being given 2 abridged copies, but it wasn't until last week that I finally bought the complete unabridged version of it. And when I recently read for the first time the Count of Monte Cristo, I had to read it in an electronic format. And the reason why I wanted to read it was because in the last weeks of 2018 and the start of 2019, I was really into French classics, reading The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Les Miserables, Lady of the Camels. So I thought it was high time I gave The Count of Monte Cristo, the book, a try. And boy, oh how glad I am that I did. For the moment, I believe this is all I have to say for The Count of Monte Cristo. Thank you so much for watching my review of it. Please let me know if you enjoyed it or not, because I would love to talk about it with you. In the description box below, you can find a link to the book's Goodreads page, as well as to a link to the movie's IMDb page. Anyways, I'm Caro Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day. Adieu.